Welcome to this interview series about what actually took place in the 1980s, a time where not so many Lindy Hoppers came in new to the scene, and new Lindy Hoppers came in. My name is Eva W. Burak. I'm here in New York City with Cynthia Millman. Today is March 26, 2023. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May I call you W?
Yeah, you may.
That's how I met you, and that's how I think of you. And,
that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So Cynthia here, among other things, she is a librarian, she's a dance teacher, she's a writer, and she's been serving on the board of New York Swing Dance Society. She's been holding lectures about the history of Lindy Hop. And of course, she's the co-author of the autobiography, Frankie Manning, Ambassador of Lindy Hop. So we're gonna get into all of that, and I'm very pleased to be here with you in your beautiful apartment.
Thank you. It's really nice to have you here, and thank you for including me in this.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to go, down memory lane and remember a very, wonderful time in my life.
Yeah. Thank you. Great. So why don't we start to? I'm curious to hear how you found Lindy Hop and where the history, because you always took care of the history of things. So how did that play in through the beginning? In the beginning, what part did that have? So can you bring us back there?
Okay. Yeah. I found Lindy Hop because I was I moved to New York a year out of college to dance. And I was exploring everything. New York had every kind of dancing at the time. And I was getting into all kinds of things, including body work. There were a lot of people helping you find how to move the best way in your body. And I was at a class like that, and I met this guy who taught ballroom dancing. He had a series where he covered sort of four basics. Maybe it was swing, maybe waltz, maybe foxtrot, and I don't remember what else it was. I had noticed that I really liked dancing in partners as I was traveling through my explorations. So I was mostly doing modern dance. I was doing a little ballet. I mean, I started with ballet, but by the time I got to New York, I was not doing too much of it. And then we would go out disco dancing. I mean, this is now we're in the, let's see, I moved here in the mid 70s and we're into the 80s. And there was this one place in the village, and they would, in the middle of all the disco dancing, where you're dancing on your own, relating to your partner, but there's no contact, they did a swing medley, a disco medley. And I'm sure it was like, in the mood, and just the very most known songs. And everybody would look around, you'd grab a partner, and you just fake it, whatever you could do. And I love that. And so when I met, and I had been going folk dancing, and I really loved the partnering and the folk dancing. I mean, I also love the Balkan line dances a lot too. But so this guy, I took his class. I liked all of it, but I definitely liked the swing dancing the best. And around that time, I think it must be that I reconnected to Margaret Batachuk.
So did they? Sorry to interrupt, but did they call it swing dancing?
Yeah, good question. He might have called it jive. He was, I think he was South American. He may have been Spanish. I'm not sure, but so I think he might have called it jive. But that's. I don't have any documentation of that. I don't remember his name. There's certain things, I can go back and research based on whatever I've saved, but I don't have that.
Yeah. And about what year was this?
Well, this was probably, I think I started first dancing in 84, so this maybe 83, something like that.
And that took you and connected you with Margaret?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that happened around that time. I think somehow I reconnected with Margaret, and I don't remember exactly how, but apparently Margaret and I, we discovered this years later.
And we're talking about Margaret Batachuk.
Margaret Batachuk, yes, who did so much to get swing dancing going in New York. We realized that we had been, this would have been in, I think, 1971. We had both attended the American Dance Festival, which was this big modern dance festival, and it was in Connecticut. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, and we actually realized that we had been on this midnight foray to a lake with a group of people where we went skinny dipping.
Yeah.
I guess it was so dark, I have no idea who was there. I guess maybe that was a good thing. And so we just remembered because somehow we were talking about both having been there, and we both remembered the person whose car, who drove us, a group of people to this. So anyway, I think Margaret is probably the person who told me about swing dancing going on up at Small's Paradise, which had been a big Harlem nightclub. And
So was it called Small's Paradise at that, or had it changed to Small's? Do you know?
Oh, was it? I don't remember if it was just Small's or Small's
But you got
Paradise.
introduced to that place.
I got introduced to that place, and I took a cab up, and I got out, and I walked in, and it was sort of a lounge bar in the front, and they were playing, I don't know, Motown or something, and I'm like, this isn't what I was expecting. And I was about to walk out, and then the bartender looked at me and said, "You're here for the dancing?" And I said, "Yeah," and I guess go in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in the back, and it's this not huge room, but a really good sized room. There's a full band, and I still really remember very clearly that the first person I noticed was someone who is a pretty really well-known jazz critic and DJ named Phil Schaap, who sadly passed away, but he's so tall that his head was towering above everyone else. I remember him. And I had a great time. People were super friendly. It was not as mixed now, I would say, but it was a quite mixed crowd. There was racially a lot of diversity, which I appreciated, and that was something I felt was missing in my life, in that this is, we're going back 35, 40 years now. New York was not as diversified racially back then. I mean, the modern dance scene and where I worked in a school. I mean, it's not that there was no diversity, but not as much. So people were very nice. I had fun dancing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was able to sort of follow, and I started to meet people, including many of the people who formed the original board of the New York Swing Dance Site. Bob Crease and Michael Clancy and several other people. So Margaret started driving a bunch of us up and back. That was on Monday nights at Smalls. She would drive around and collect everybody, which was really great of her. And I really got into it, and I started to hear more about where to go and what to do.
So was it like a pure, it was just a social dance? Did they pass on, was there any class setting at all?
No classes that I don't believe there were any classes.
And who of the old timers were there that you recall?
Well, it's a little blurry.
The older generation?
Yeah, I didn't meet Frankie till later. I was trying to remember this. There was a woman named Yvonne. I got to know the names better down at the New York Swing Dance Society opened their dances, because I was going there more. I mean, I worked full time, so I couldn't always go out on the Monday nights, and it closed. It didn't last that long. It was happening for about a year. There was a really wonderful dancer that a lot of us like named Sonny Olivo, since passed, John White, since passed, and quite a few other people. I didn't know Frankie at that point.
Was it a house band? Was it the same musicians? Did they rotate?
I think it might have been, I really should, make notes on all this. I think it might have been Harlem Blues and Jazz, but Margaret will be able to tell you better.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I think that's who it was.
So Smalls was the place.
Yeah. And then and I'm not sure exactly of the chronology of this, but I really wanted to start doing more of this. And I had tried like every kind of dance. Honestly, it's very rare that I hear or learn about a kind of a dance that I didn't at least take one class in New York.
And that was, you took a class through your education?
I did some classes while I was at NYU. I did a BA in dance and physiology, then I did a master's degree in dance and dance education.
So part of that was the history part always
The history part always interested me, yeah. In fact, I had a course with the director, the first director of the dance collection at Lincoln Center. Genevieve Oswald was her name. And it was a great class. I loved it. I loved dance history. There was virtually nothing about black dance and nothing about the Lindy Hop. Very, they touched on a couple of the big names in black modern dance. I had also done Isadora Duncan dancing for a while, and that had led me to look at ancient forms of dance. And there was a wonderful teacher here named Elizabeth Aldrich who had done a lot of research on dances of the Renaissance and the 1700s and 1800s. I took a bunch of classes with her. I had gone down for a historical dance weekend at Goucher College with Bob Crease, who was one of the founders of the New York Swing Dance Society, and so there was just everything here, and it was really great. I loved it, but I took classes on my own a lot too. So I was looking for swing dance classes. I heard about Sandra Cameron's, and I was dating someone then who wasn't particularly into dancing, but I really wanted him to come with me. And so I finally got him to agree to go to Sandra Cameron's, which was on 20th Street at the time. A lot of people were getting into swing dancing there because that's when Al Minns was teaching. And was
it any other schools teaching?
If there were, I think there might have been, but I didn't know about them. And Margaret either was teaching or began teaching, and I definitely took classes with her, and I'll get to that in a minute. But so I remember that to go with me, I took him out to a bar for a drink, then we went to a movie, then we went out for another drink, and finally he was ready. Yeah. And then what happened, and we walked in, and I didn't even know enough about how these studios operated to get the schedule. We just walked in, and it was we walked in, and the class was like a country western line dancing. Now I love all kinds of dancing. I love that kind of dancing, but was having none of it, and he was like, he was willing to try swing dance because it was to jazz music. He's a journalist but also a musician, and that kind of music appealed to him, but this was not going to fly. So we left. Yeah. And then another time I went to a place called City Limits, which was in the Village near where I was living at the time, and I had heard maybe from Margaret or somebody that there was swing dancing one night a week there. And again, I just wasn't as organized then as I am now. There was no internet. You couldn't look these things up very easily. I went in, and I think it was some other kind of dancing, so I missed the swing night. So it took longer. This may have happened before I finally got up to Smalls, so it took a while to actually get this going.
But you found your way to Sandra Cameron?
Yes, but I didn't take classes there for a long time. I didn't take classes there until Frankie was teaching there a few years later. So I missed Al Minns, which I'm very sorry about.
So you didn't hang around him or didn't know of him? No,
I never met him. No,
yeah.
I don't. Yeah. I can't add anything about him except what we've all seen in the films, which is, of course, amazing. So let's see.
So how did you get into and involved in New York Swing Dance Society?
Okay, so what happened was not that long after I started going to Smalls, the New York Swing Dance Society formed, and they started having dances on Sunday nights in the East Village at this place called the Cat Club, which was great. You were there, right?
Yeah.
So I started going to that. I don't think I was at the very first dance, but I think I might have been there by the second dance.
So the idea was just to get a place and get the dance going socially and not necessarily teach?
That's going to be more something Margaret, because I wasn't, eventually I was on the board for a while, but I wasn't then. At some point, I think they started having a class before, but... and that may have been regular, it might have been special, like if somebody was in from out of town. I don't remember about that. But they always had a big band. They had a roster of big bands. I have cards from that period. I mean, if you want to.
And how often did they put on the dances?
It was... it might have been, it was either every other week or once a month at first. And then as they grew in popularity, and they got very popular, I mean, it really was running really strong for a number of years, which was great. they went either to bi-weekly or week. At a certain point, it went weekly, which was really fun, and it was just. It really took away that sort of awful Sunday night feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Sundays became fun and something to look forward to instead of the countdown to work.
So what did the dance look like back then?
What did it look like? I mean,
how did they, if you compare today, what was the dance about?
So soon, at some point at the New York Swing Dance Study, I met Frankie somewhere else, which I describe in the book, but Frankie was there, Norma would be there, and these older dancers, Buster Brown was there, the tap dancer, he'd show up quite a bit, and then it was a lot of younger dancers, many white, mostly white, I think. There were, the black dancers tended to be older. The younger black dancers, that started happening later on. Not, just in general, I'm saying, not that there weren't any. It didn't look like what you saw in the old films, except for someone like Frankie and Norma. It was a social dance style. We were doing, I'd say us younger dancers doing kind of, big kind of style. I mean, we were having fun. There were some people who I really liked the way they looked, but I would say that I didn't see as high a level of dancing among the younger dancers as I am seeing now. That sort of took off and kind of blew my mind, because I was sort of, between doing the book and injuries, I would sort of not be out very much, and then I would come back and see all these changes in the style.
So back then, what would you say the influence was for those dancers who were active? If it's did they go back and try to find sources and imitate and copy what happened back then?
Yeah, I think people were doing that, and at some point Frankie started dancing. I want to just point out that Margaret was an exception. She was a beautiful dancer right from the beginning, and I loved watching her. There was a guy named Tom Lewis, really incredible dancer, and now I'm gonna get myself in trouble because I'm gonna leave out some names. That's always
part, yeah.
But there were some terrific dancers, and there was a woman who came from Germany, and I really enjoyed her style of dancing. I was probably a competitive Sirach or whatever, but she just had a really cute style of dancing. I like that, and. I sort of always felt like I wasn't quite hitting it, and I don't think I ever really did, but, you'd pick things up. Ryan started coming, the rhythm hot shots started coming in, the jiving Lindy hoppers started visiting. Everybody who came to New York would come to the Cat Club, and they were all bringing really great dancing. I mean, when I saw Ryan, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe what he's doing. Stephen and Aaron came, Stephen Mitchell and Aaron Stevens came, and again, it was like, wow, I'm just seeing such beautiful dancing, and try to incorporate it.
Yes, I want to hear more about that. Before we move into what took place when the visitors came, I was just curious with the older black dancers. Did they dance with you guys, the younger generation? Was it like everybody was dancing with everybody? Were they inviting and generous that way?
Everybody was dancing with everybody. I mean, every now and then would be maybe a few younger people didn't want to dance around. They might have wanted to dance with their partner but no, it was a lot of mix. It was a lot of fun. I've always liked being around older people, so I was really enjoying that. And I was kind of I've always wanted to be around people of different ages and different backgrounds, and I just found it interesting to hear about people who have all kinds of different life experience. So there was a lot of mixing, and we were certainly picking up, I think, a rhythmicity, if that's a word, like how to really work with the music rhythmically, which has always been weak for me. I'm always a little behind the music. I was thinking about this, a sort of kind of internal styling, not super flashy, but just really beautiful movements and expressions. And I I was sort of realizing that I was trying to do all this big flashy stuff because coming from a modern dance background, you're always trying to be big and get out to the audience. And this felt more internalized. And I was very aware once I started dancing and performing that I was using the air steps to make up for the lack that I knew I had. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed them. And actually, as time went along, I got really into just like watching those people. When the shim sham would happen, I would just step out and I just realized I'd rather watch them because I was seeing such beautiful dancing.
So the shim sham we do today, it happened back in the Cat Club already?
Yeah, Frankie introduced that back then to us. Yeah.
And do you have any sense of what the older generation dancers, together with you guys, how did they look upon you guys being interested in coming back in and showing interest for the whole thing and the past? What do they think about it?
I don't really know for sure, other than that I think Frankie and Norma and Dawn really enjoyed that there was an interest in a younger generation. Obviously for Frankie, he spent those 30 years in the post office thinking it was all over. So he expressed many times to many people how thrilling it was for him that people saw this dance that he had loved so much and that there was an appreciation of it again. So definitely he did, and Norma expressed that. They all love that. I think we were in a different place in terms of race relations and the progression of the civil rights movement back then, and so coming together, the feeling back then was like, let's get everybody together and get to know each other, and that will move us forward. And I came from a very progressive background. I was very interested in being part of that. I understood, you had to go on marches and demonstrate and do those sorts of things too, but this felt like an important part of the progression. Now, we're in a different place in that we are, we still, I think, feel that, but there's been more coming out about individual and group, the experience of groups and individuals, which I think has been tremendously educational for all of us. And I'm, very grateful to have been more educated about this. But at that point, it just seemed like we were all really enjoying each other's company. I felt that, and it seemed like that's how everybody felt, and it was a lot of fun. I think everybody seemed to appreciate that there were younger dancers there appreciating. A lot of these people had gone to the Savoy, and they had, as we now know more, they had kept up some of the dancing in certain venues, but I think that they were enjoying that there was this whole, this new generation that was showing an interest.
And were they like stepping in and kind of like, no, think about this way or try this? Were they active that way, or they were just like, hey, let it be what it is, let's enjoy this together?
There wasn't, I don't recall a lot of that. In fact, it was a little bit kind of, I think the etiquette was not to be correcting or even educating in a positive way. There wasn't a lot of that. There were some of these people, the Sonny Allen and I'm blanking on his name, Lynn, and Charlie Meade. It was more that they were passing on what they knew through the dance. That was my recollection of it. I would have conversations with these people about, I know I interviewed Charlie at one point and talked about his background. That was really interesting, and I was really enjoying learning about the history.
And did you do that from a place of I'm just interested, can we meet and talk about this, or did you were writing, did you have articles you were writing at the time? Was it part of your work, or was it for your personal interest?
Well, I was just interested, and then I wrote, the first article I wrote about swing dancing was, I think, in 1989, and and then I did a master's thesis on swing dancing, and when was that? That would have been, well, I have to think about the dates on that. But maybe I finished that around 94, 96. And then the idea for the book came along, which happened at Foray, the summer I was there, 1993, And I could give Monica Coe some credit there because we were talking about it, and she said, all right, if you're going to do it, you really need to, do it. And I talked to Frankie and said, has anyone else approached you about this? And he said, no. So so we started after that summer. But no, I was just interested, but the interest was kind of cycling through me and coming out in writing, and I got really obsessed with it. Really obsessed. Yeah. In a great way. It was it's hard to imagine that kind of a passion again in my life. I mean, I'm very interested in other topics. I love children's literature, and I'm interested in holistic health, and I'm very passionate about all those. This was like really big, and it was wonderful. You know what it's like. Anyone who's sort of been gets caught up in something, it's wonderful to have your whole life be informed. Like everything you see and do and hear is going into a database that you're building about something, and it was a lot of fun. Every time a new video showed up, or somebody would have a dress, or there'd be you'd see an artwork, or it's just all very thrilling.
Just one question before, and then I want to go back to the book.
I told you.
But it's also interesting. No, it's super interesting. So I just want to hear your what you remember from here. You're in New York, and people finding from different places, coming to New York to dance and to look for the roots and stuff. What happened when you met them? What was any collaboration? What happened with the guest dancers coming in?
Oh, the guest dancers.
They showed up at the Cat Club. Did you know they were coming? Was it any kind of... did you stay in touch with them prior? Or it was like, oh, here we have some people from UK coming. Let's see what they are about. How was the feeling meeting?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to remember, communications was really different back then.
Yeah.
In fact, to call Europe was really expensive. So like if I was going to try to talk to someone in Europe, I would wait till Friday night at 9:00. And when the rates went down, and I would call between then and Sunday night at 9:00 when the rates went back up. That's what it was like. And I in the 80s, I became more involved and active in the 90s. So by then, I might have been in touch with people and known they were coming ahead of time. But in the 80s, when it was happening, I would go to the cat. I might hear, oh, someone's coming, but I would go, or Frankie might say the Rhythm Hot Shots are coming, or the Jive Lindy Hoppers are coming. But a lot of it would, I would just meet people at the dance. You'd connect. It was very exciting. I was in New York. I was meeting lots of different people, but I didn't know a lot of people from Europe. And I was just sort of learning about that there was swing dancing going on all over the place. So it was a lot of fun to meet people. Sometimes we'd all go out afterwards. I was sometimes putting people up in my apartment, and that was fun.
Was it a lot of sharing, like which clips do you have, what do you know, blah, blah, blah? Was it like that?
Some of that, yeah. In fact, I remember when Sylvia Sykes was in town, and I put her up her little, you bring sometimes a little gift for your host, so she brought me a video of Helsa Poppin'. And Rob Von Horen brought a photo of from Helsa Poppin', and so there was a lot of that, tons of that.
Great. And you partnered Frankie.
I did sometimes. Once I joined the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, sometimes I was partnering with him, which was.
So who was Big Apple Lindy Hoppers?
So that was started by Monica Coe and. What's her name? Pam McLaughlin, with Frankie and Norma. And I did not make the first round of auditions.
So what are we talking? When is this?
Okay.
Look at her with the book.
I'm so glad that we have this book because honestly,
you did the work, and now you can go back.
Honestly, I would not have remembered a lot of this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, and here it is. Small's Paradise was 1984. Began holding 1985. The New York Swing Dance Society began. I have to look it up, but it was.
So was it prior to when you formed New York Swing Dance?
No. They were considered a project of a program of the New York Swing Dance Society.
Okay, yeah. Big Apple, Lindy Hopper. So that was like a performance troupe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so tell me about them. What were they about?
Well, they were dedicated to Frankie's choreography, and I think Norma worked with them also, so it would have been her choreography. As I said, I didn't get in, so I didn't know really what was going on with them. It's okay. I did something very proactive, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And they would perform at the New York Swing Dance Society and other places, and it was to help get, spread swing dancing as we knew it and as we understood it.
How many dancers?
I think they went from, say 6 to 12.
Several numbers?
They did, yeah.
Repertoire?
What did they do? Well, they would do stomping at the woodside. They would
jumping at
the woodside. Thank you. They did that. That was their sort of upbeat air step routine. They probably did a Big Apple. I think they had a performance Shim Sham. I mean, that's what.
And performed other places outside of the society?
They did. They traveled around a little bit. I know they performed at Frankie's retirement party, which I was not at. I didn't really know him at that point.
Yeah. And regular training dates and
yeah,
sessions.
they rehearsed. And when I joined, Frankie was still meeting with us once a week usually, unless he was traveling. So the more as he became more known and more in demand, he would be out of town more.
And what day was the rehearsal? Was midweek Wednesdays?
It might have been Wednesdays.
Or was it?
I think, and then there were some points where we would meet twice, and I'm pretty sure one of them was a Sunday.
I have this feeling and the memory of he always tried to schedule so he could come back to the city, and he had, the rehearsals were important. He had to come back in town, into the city.
Right. Well, he was probably also he used to really try to come back he taught at Sandra's on Monday night. So if he was in California, he would do an overnight flight back. He'd get home, he was amazing. I mean, he was in his late 70s, 80s, into the 90s. Take a nap, and then go teach at Sandra's. Then he'd like to go to Acme Bar and eat dinner. Then he'd go uptown to Wells. Sometimes he'd go out again to Showman's Bar after Wells, which was a more sort of tap dancers kind of venue on 125th Street. I mean, this is after flying in over. It was amazing. I mean, that's how much he loved this and how much he wanted to be. He wanted to be there for himself. He wanted to be there for other people. I mean, I remember one of those nights where it was this marathon night. Ryan was in town. He's like, "Well, Ryan's here. I wanna see him." So he was out. Yeah, it was pretty amazing what he did. So were we on Wednesday nights? I don't know, because Wednesday nights was North River Bar, which was the second venue that I knew of that opened. So there was, I think Judy talked more about some of the other Harlem Monday night venues, which, as we talked about the other night, things were done on Monday nights a lot because it was a dark night in the theater, so the performers could go out. So Smalls closed, Wells open, and then there was a place called, I think, was it City Lights? Judy probably
Northern Lights?
Northern Lights, yeah. That was in an office building, I think probably on 125th Street. I didn't get there that often. And then North River Bar in Soho opened, and there was a small Brian Dupree's Swing Now Trio, I think they were called. It's all in the book. They were playing, and they brought in some really cool guests, some of the old timers, which was great. And that was a smaller venue, and that was really, really cool. And that's where I met Frankie. I was watching him and Michael Clancy, who was a wonderful dancer, also one of the original New York Swing Dance Society board members and member of the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, pointed him out. He said he was one of the original Savoy Lindy Hoppers, and I was watching him, and he looked really different from anybody else I had seen
How
at that
so?
point. Well, very rhythmical, and as I describe in the book, everything was moving, all different parts. It was just sort of not necessarily all one single movement. Different things were happening, but it was all coming together. So I think I called it like an orchestra of moving parts, which makes me think of African dance, how there's this sort of different things happening in different parts of the body. And his expression was part of it. He was not being flashy. I mean, he was very adamant that what you did on a social dance floor was different from what you did in a performance. So Michael introduced him and Gabby Winkle, who was also on the board, and I chatted with him. He was very nice.
How long have you been dancing?
Probably maybe a year or 2 years, maybe something like that.
Did you get to dance with Frankie at this time?
Not that night, no. I don't think I danced with him that night, but I did. He was very generous about dancing with even people that weren't that good and that were new, and just really, and never made you feel bad. If you messed up, he'd just laugh. I mean, he was famous for that. You never felt bad about it, which was great, because if somebody makes you feel bad, you get worse usually. Yeah. I mean, some people respond to kind of tough love, but
no, he was great adjusting himself to whoever he was dancing with.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So where did that go? The relationship with Frankie, and how did that lead into eventually proposing? I have an idea here about a book.
Right. Well,
how did that all come about?
Well, so things happened sort of around the same time. So one was I did an article for a small West Side, it was called the West Sider, a small neighborhood newspaper, about swing starting to become more popular in the wider segment of the in New York. And again, I think there were things happening that I didn't know about till I learned about more recently, but it was sort of replacing the sort of disco dancing. People were wanting to connect, and so I interviewed him for that, and he was a very good interviewee. He really could remember things. He spoke in a very engaging and descriptive way. He was very good at answering questions. He knew give you how much you wanted, and not more, not less. I interviewed other people for the book, and for example, some people give very short clipped answers, and it's really hard to create a narrative from what they say, but he was very good. And then another thing that happened was when I didn't get into the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, I asked Frankie. I had been taking classes a lot with Margaret, and that really helped me a lot, helped me move to a little more proficient place and being better able to follow people and know what the steps were. And I really enjoyed those classes. And then Frankie at some point started teaching at Sandra Cameron's. I started taking those classes as well. And it got to a point where I wanted to improve more. And so I asked Frankie, if I get the studio and I get the students and I take care of all the, I collect the money and pay you, would you be interested in an invited class with sort of more advanced dancers, which I feel like I really had no right to call myself that now, but people who were sort of intermediate but ready to move on, let's put it that way. And he said he would. I mean, I didn't know him well enough. Maybe he was going to say, of course not, but no, he was like, sure, I'll do that. So I got a bunch of people, Kathy LaQuadra, Karen Goldstein, I think Stuart Math was probably in that class back then. I have pictures of it, so I can.
So this was during the same time as
Odella,
the Big Apple?
Shannon was in it. Yeah.
So the group already existed, and then you pulled this class together.
And I did it specifically so I could build my skills, so I could get in again at a certain point.
Good idea.
Yeah, it was a great idea. And the class kept going for years, even after I left. Karen took over running it, and Frankie loved doing it, and they would always go out afterwards. And
so was it in that setting you were teaching, assisting him, and doing helping him out in class? Was that when you were partnering with him?
Did I help him? I helped him sometimes. I think he used different members of the class to assist with him, but I did that some. Yeah, somewhere in there I started, once I got into the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, which I think was in 91, he was my partner sometimes. I often danced with Bob Kreese, which was a lot of fun. And I worked with other people, Steve Homer sometimes. But yeah, we started doing school programs sometimes also. And that was a lot of fun. I was teaching, at the time I was teaching dance at a private school in Manhattan, where I became the librarian eventually. But so I invited him to come do some classes at the school, not to teach the kids how to dance, but a history. And I guess at that point I had done a library master's degree, and for my thesis I did it on swing dance resources. So I had to have it be library related. So I worked with two other women, and we researched what was out there in the press on swing dancing. So by then I felt like I knew a little more about it. And I remember Frankie came to the school. We had two classes of second graders. And the reason it was second grade was at that point, the curriculum for second grade was to study neighborhoods of Harlem of New York, and they focused on Harlem. And they took the kids up there to Sylvia's and the Apollo Theater. And I did a dance segment for the teachers. So Frankie came in. It was scheduled to be 45 minutes. And I was holding things up in person, like my Life magazines. This was still, we showed videos, but that was the only technology. And those kids just sat absolutely mesmerized by him. So at the end of 45 minutes, we still had plenty of material to cover. And I said to the teachers, we can keep going if you want. They said, yeah. So we went another 45 minutes. So for second graders, they sat there for an hour and a half, which people think kids don't have focus, but if it's something that's engaging them, they do. And then the only reason we stopped was school ended. We had to break it up.
Or they would have continued to today.
Yeah, and they adored him. So then we did more of that, and we brought Dawn in. At some point I was injured. I couldn't dance with Frankie. We brought Dawn in to partner with him, and add so people could see another style of dance and see solo improv. And also one of the schools that we went to, the principal there was a dancer, and she also wanted Dawn to be part of it. So we had one show that was on Lindy Hop, we had another show on Big Apple, and that was there was one really great funny story. We were going back to a school where we'd been before, and I wanted to add some new elements. So I said, how about if we show them some blues dancing? And I don't think it was even called blues dancing. I think I might have said, can you dance to blues music? But I'm not sure when that terminology came in. I mean, I had interviewed another wonderful African-American performer named Vernell Bonneries, who created a wonderful show called One Mo Time, which was about it was set in a black theater and about African American vernacular dance, and he talked about, we called it slow dancing, and Frankie talked about that. So they're like, no, we can't do that for kids, and I'm like, really? I mean, can't you just dance slow? I mean, you don't have to make it like super sexy, but. And they're like, no. I said, can we just try? Just let me put some music on. Let me see what you're going to do, and then I can handle the talking part, because
who did question it? Was it who were like
Frankie and they came over. We did a run through for the show.
Why did they question it? What was their hesitation?
It's too sexy for kids.
Yeah. So what took place?
So I put the music on, thinking that they would, just tone down what they might. Well, no, they toned it up. They turned the volume up, and they were like, undressing. They were basically starting a strip
Yeah.
show.
And was it just you in the room?
It was
with
just
them?
me in the room. Yeah, really, really very exotic dancing, and it was.
Were they serious, or was it like?
No, they were doing it to crack me up.
Of course.
And it was hilarious. It was. I wish I had that on video. That would be very precious. So I was like, okay.
I got the message. We're not gonna do it.
Yeah. But so these were all steps, and for the master's thesis, I interviewed Frankie, and I came out of that feeling like I have a better idea of where the resources are. And then we did these school shows, and I did start teaching some with Frankie here and there. And then one thing that led into the book was, after the Big Apple Lindy Hopper rehearsals, we would all go out afterwards. And we used to play this game called Categories. So somebody would, the category, it started off with Times I Broke the Law, which is when Frankie talked about taking a little toy from Woolworths. And everybody would go around the table and tell their story. And it was such great entertainment. It's still it's a great party game. And it progressed to stupid things I did for love, and the most unusual or uncomfortable place I ever made love. I mean, it just got bawdier and bawdier as we went along and got to know each other better. But Frankie was such a good raconteur, and he was so interesting. And the more I knew about the Savoy, I realized, okay, this is an original connection to what happened there. And I always was drawn to that in dance. I really, if I was doing modern dance, it was very exciting to meet some of the original people who started movements in modern dance. So at some point in Harangue, the idea came up, and I asked him, so we started working on it after that.
What was his reaction initially?
Well, Frankie was not, as and everyone who knew him, he was not self-promotional. He was not big at tooting his own horn. And so it wasn't like, wow, yeah, you want to do a book about me? That would be amazing. No, it was just like, okay, we can try that.
Has someone else approached him about the subject?
There was, around that time, one other person. And I think he, perhaps I may have had a little bit more background, and we had already been working together quite a bit. I'd interviewed him quite a bit, and we were dancing some. And at one point, I asked him to go into a studio, and this was when, again, just to give you a sense of the technology, video cameras came out after I started dancing. I mean, I didn't have a VCR for a long time into the dancing, as a poor student and teacher. But I asked, Frankie jumped on that really fast. I mean, he had all that stuff way before I did. So I said, could we film a dictionary of steps, by category? And we started doing that, but then once I started the book, I didn't have time.
So was that supposed to be part of the book project?
I didn't really put that together. In those days, the technology was so undeveloped that I had no idea what we would do with it except look at it on a VCR. I mean, there was no sense of publishing these things the way there is now. I think it's really hard for young dancers to understand that. Like somebody asked me, it was a good question, they asked me, why did you do the sidebars in the story where you sort of give background information about other things in the third person? And I was like, well, I didn't know about that stuff, and I figured other people wouldn't either, and it wasn't like you could just type in the Charleston on the internet and get pages and pages of information. I mean, it was very different. This section in the book where I have the list of swing dance societies, swing dancing around the world. Some of those, the way I got the address was I had to call the people to get it because I couldn't find them online. I mean, they maybe had a website, but it was really hard to find it. The search capabilities were so poor. So, so we agreed to do it. I think he also understood that that because of for time factors, he had to focus on one project.
And you had a full-time job.
Yeah, I worked full-time the entire time I was doing it. The book, it was really hard.
So here you are,
But
right?
it was a labor of love. I was
Uh-huh.
really into it, but it you know, towards the end, I would basically, like the last year and 9 months, in order to make the deadline that the Temple University Press asked us to meet, I stopped socializing completely. I would just go home on Friday. On my way home, I'd stop and buy food for the weekend. Whole Foods had just opened, and they actually had takeout food that was more, and people don't think of it as cheap, but it was more affordable than the gourmet stores that had takeout food. And so I'd buy food so I didn't have to cook much, and I would have some enjoyment, you know, outside of, because I wasn't going out.
This was for a year and a half.
For a year and 9 months. and I would just go home and stay home the whole weekend working. If I went out at all, it was to do my laundry on Saturday night.
Yay!
Because I didn't have a laundromat in the building, and if I went on Saturday night, I knew I wouldn't have to wait for a machine, and I wouldn't leave till Monday morning. And that was very, I mean, you know, very rare. I cut out Thanksgiving with my family one year, and
What a commitment.
there was one time I had my birthday, and you know, Frankie loves celebrating people's anniversaries and with everybody. He did it with all his friends, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not coming over to do an interview unless we go out for your birthday." And so I said, "All right, can we go to this place? It's really close." And you know, I mean, I was probably ordering things that didn't take very long to cook.
So efficient.
But that's what it took. But it wasn't, and I remember, you know, there were moments of like, oh, please let this be over. But I also remember, I'm not going to look back on this as the worst time in my life, because being so engaged and so committed to a project is a really joyous part of life. And I sort of understood that at the time.
That's great. Wow. So I would love to hear how it happened. How did you meet? Was it like, did you have steady times, like the process of just making it happen? But also, if you could start explaining what's a co-author versus an author.
Okay.
And Frankie's part in that, because obviously you're doing it together and on some level. So can you sort that out a little bit?
Yeah.
The different roles.
Yeah. So, you know, Frankie was very generous of spirit, and we kind of modeled that credit based on Charlie Atkinson's autobiography, which was also written in the same way, where Charlie got interviewed by this wonderful writer named Jackie Malone, and she put the story together in writing. And she was also, it was an and author, and you know, Charlie and Jackie. So he always said, it's my story, but you're telling it. You're writing it. I guess you would say you're writing it. He was telling it, I was writing. He'd say, I'm telling it, you're writing it. So that was how that
Did you record it?
Yeah. Yes. I have about 60 hours of recordings that I worked off of, and then I would get them transcribed, which was a lot of work, because we shared expenses. We didn't really have a huge budget, and I would get people from the colleges students who needed money, and they do it a few times, and then it was probably kind of dull for them, and not, you know, we tried to pay decently, but it probably wasn't enough to make it worth it, and then I'd have to keep retraining people.
So it's like you have the interview on tape, and someone had to transcribe it, put it down into text, and then you work with the text.
Yeah,
So.
and I really wished I'd had time to transcribe it myself, because it would have sunk in better if I had. But I was working full time. So
and did you run up to Frankie? Did you see him at his place? Did he come here?
Sometimes I went to his place to interview him, and he often came to my apartment. We tried to meet once a week for the interviews, and then I, work on the weekends. I mean, I would spend school nights on things that didn't take such high level thinking, like I might, be calling people to get information, or doing Xeroxing of things, or going to the bookstore to buy the books I need, or going to a library to Xerox materials. And then the writing, where I really had to have my brain be fresh, would be on the weekends and vacations. And I used to teach every summer at a dance camp, but I stopped doing that because I knew that I had to have that kind of concentrated period of time. So, so I lost quite a bit of money by not teaching those summers, and the expenses, in those days, I mean, you paid I didn't have a printer, paid for Xeroxing. I bought a lot of books because I understood it was just too inefficient to look something up in a library and then come home and realized, oh, I didn't check this, so I bought as many of the books as I could. So, it was quite expensive, actually. In the end, I think that I probably spent about a year's salary on the book over the course of 10 years.
So when would you say it started, and when did you finish the project?
So we started around 93, and then, let's see, 93, 2003. It went slowly at first because I didn't understand that I was going to really have to dedicate myself to it. So I was still writing other articles. I did some articles for Dance Magazine. I was still going out more. It was, and as...
You still had a life in the beginning?
I still had a life, yeah. I was doing some traveling a little bit in the summers here and there, still seeing family and friends. So it took a long time, but it started to sort of snowball. And then at a certain point, it came out in 2007. I had to hand the manuscript in 2006. And I guess around 2004, we got the contract with Temple.
So you're starting out 93 without having a contract, so
Yeah.
that kind of like just came about later.
Yeah.
So the deadline 2006, was that what you said? The first?
The deadline ended up being the deadline was 2006.
6, okay.
Yeah. So that's 13 years. So it actually 93 to 2000. Yeah, 93 to 10. So that's like about 13 years. So what happened is it was very slow progression in the beginning. And then it started to pick up more and more. And at first, I had a lot, I forgot to mention that, I think in 93, because I wasn't dancing because of an injury, there was a big swing dance event here, Lindy Hop event, and the director, the producers, they knew I was very upset about my injury. I mean, I was in the middle of loving dancing. I injured my leg doing an air step, and I couldn't dance, and I just came home and cried every night for a year. It was really, and eventually I had surgery and I was able to dance again, and then I injured my leg again just dancing at a wedding, and had surgery again, and now I can dance, but it's risky. Like I don't want to get a knee replacement, so I'm sort of more I socialize at swing dances, and I love watching people dance and not dancing too much myself. But anyway, so they knew I was interested in the history. I'd done the thesis, so I did a big exhibit, and I brought that to Harangue in 93. So that was in March that I did the exhibit here. I went in the summer of 93, and people were looking at this exhibit. It was quite extensive, and saying, you should do a book. And Ernie Smith had helped me with the exhibit. He had loaned me. Ernie Smith was this wonderful film collector. He worked with Marshall Stearns. He was part of his crowd, and Marshall was focusing somewhat on the dance, also on the music, and Ernie started collecting dance on film. And he was doing film programs which were thrilling and really added to my interest in the history. And his stuff is all on the Schomburg now. If people want to watch it, they can go to the Schomburg, and it's also in the Smithsonian now.
Mm-hmm. But you have to go there personally.
I'm not sure. I think the Smithsonian makes it available, but I'm not sure. I haven't totally kept up on that.
So how was Ernie Smith connected to you and the exhibit?
Well, he loaned me some stuff for the early. I did a thing on one segment of the exhibit was the precursors, and he had all kinds of images. He had a lot of song sheet music covers. So I went up to his apartment, and he was showing me that famous song sheet music cover of the Charleston. He had a copy, and he was so nice. He let me take it with me. And I'm a librarian. I promise I worked for him. He hardly knew me. And it was like, even if he trusted me, it was like I could get hit by a car or something. And in those days, nobody had home printers, so I had to go to a Xerox place. And so we were going to work on this book together. We were planning the whole history of swing dancing. And I remember I went up to visit him one weekend where he had a summer place, and we spent the whole weekend talking. And then I think what he realized, he was quite a bit older than me, and I think he realized he had been an art director, very successful art director in ad agencies. I think he did the first PBS logo. Okay. And so Ernie decided he wanted to focus on painting. And I simultaneously realized it was too big a project, and that because of Frankie's age, I couldn't do that. And I decided I'll focus on, originally it was going to be focus on Frankie's story. And I can always go back and do the rest of it later. And at the same time, Terry Monahan in England was doing deep, deep research for a book on the Savoy. And he was getting around to all of the dancers, everybody. There was, and quite a few of the original Whitey's Lindy Hoppers were still around, and the Kangaroo dancers were still around. He was interviewing all of them. I interviewed some of them because originally I was going to write the book in third person. I wanted to be able to make commentary. And at a certain point, I just realized that is going to take forever. And for example, I was working on the Harvest Moon Ball, and it was like, the level of research I'm going to have to do for every sentence I write in the third person is, I'll never finish this in time for Frankie while he's alive, and I desperately wanted that to happen. So I decided to switch to first person, and it's one of the best decisions.
So when you say first person, like it's Frankie who's telling the story.
It's Frankie's words, yeah.
It's Frankie's words.
Yeah.
And that's, you can so feel that in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a good decision because, I still did a lot of fact checking, and I hired someone to look at the book in terms of, for music facts. I hired an military historian to review it for the military, because I started doing research into World War II, and there was, that day where he talks about, I came up in the Pacific Ocean on the ship I was on, and it was filled with ships, and I was trying to find out more about the official name of what was going on that day, and one book I looked at had it on one day in August, and another book had it on another day, and probably, one day was they were configuring, and the next day they were configured, but I was like, I just didn't have the background, so I hired people to review the book for things like that. So we switched to first person. That was the best thing, and because Frankie has such a distinctive voice, and I have to say, from the very beginning when we would show drafts of the book, the first thing people would say of it sounds like Frankie, and that was like the best feedback we could get. And then also, I learned to write while doing the book, and it's one of, for me, the biggest personal pluses, benefits of having done the book. But I'm better, but I'm still not such a great writer that my words would have carried the book. I don't feel like. There's, some people, you read how they write about history, and their writing is so amazing that it makes the book, and other people, they're getting the facts in, but the writing is not carrying the book. And Frankie's words carried the book because his voice is so, engaging.
Now, when you think about it, what was the biggest surprise creating your first book? What didn't you know when you started? It must be a list of things, but what comes to mind?
Well, one thing was I didn't know a lot of grammar and punctuation, which I know now, and I'm a bit of a stickler about it. But for example, when it's IT''S, that's combining it is. But when you say, it's nature, or that, I went to somewhere and it's beautiful beaches, for example, then that's possessive. So I didn't know that, and I didn't know all kinds of little things like that I had to learn. And fortunately, I enjoyed learning that, but it was also very, detail-oriented. What is it? Buddy Steve's on our board, the Frankie Manning Foundation board. What does he call me? A persnickety editor, which I actually love. I consider that.
I've never heard that word.
It means very detail-oriented.
And then, how did you tease out memories from Frankie? We know he had such a great storyteller, and he had such a great memory, but did you drive around? Did you go to places with him in the car telling stories, or did you look at videos and talked about it, or he just had it and just from his own memory bank?
Well, we certainly looked at videos. I mean, basically, we started the chapters and the shape of the book kind of started to come together. I also had his albums, which maybe I'll get and just hold up for people to see. So, for example, I started with the Australia chapter because he had clipped a lot of stuff when they were in Australia and New Zealand in 1938 to 39. So I felt like this is a good place to start because there's a lot of information. And then I sort of worked backward and forward as I found more resources and mined his albums. So that was, we'd go through I'd look through everything. I'd have a set of questions. He'd come over. We'd go through the questions. Of course, he'd expand on it. I'd write it up. I'd mark the questions I had because, of course, things would come up as you're writing. And then he'd come back and we'd review more questions.
And did he have a chance, was it like, okay, this is what we've been working on, and you showed that to him, or you did all your work on the side, and then at what point did he have a look at that then?
I would print it up, it was sort of back and forth. I mean, as the book took shape, more and more I would give him printed chapters to look at.
Did he have opinions and like change this and that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was he would, and also he might say. I mean, I remember we were up at Beantown Dance Camp one morning he I saw him in the food hall, and he said, I remembered a few things I want to tell you about, and that was some wonderful stuff from his childhood. So he knew that I was very detail-oriented, so as he didn't really think other people would care about all the details. He kind of went along with it, with me, and he started giving more information at a more detailed level, as opposed to the bigger stories that were more entertaining for people that he would tell. And I think that, honestly, until the book was published and people appreciated that, he wasn't sure. He had grave doubts about whether anyone was going to be interested. I knew that.
Was there a lot of discussions with him about that?
There were quite a few, actually. At one point he said to me, he named a few people, and this person, this person, this person, they think everything about my life is interesting, but most of the people are not going to think that. And I'm like, I don't know, Frankie. And it was so funny because the swing dance organization Yehudi had started their online presence, and people were having discussions on their forum. And there was one discussion about what the follower does on count 5 of the swing app, and it went for pages and pages and pages. And I printed it all out, and I gave it to him, and I said, I think these people are into details. Like, take a look at this discussion. And he folded up. He put it, that big winter coat he had in the inside pocket, and he was a little more amenable after that. I always give Yehudi a lot of credit for that. They also had told me before we got the publisher. They said, if you don't get a publisher, we'll help you self-publish, which, I love that all those guys, Rick and Frankie and Neil and Manu, all those guys. I just, I know there are some newer people that I don't know, but they were so supportive. They did our book party. I mean, they were amazing. David Jacoby, absolutely amazing group of guys.
That's great.
So, yeah, and then the night before I had to turn in the book, fortunately Frankie was in town, and I said, listen, I'm going to stay up all night. I have to read the book through from beginning to end, and just see if there's anything that's not making sense, or something that doesn't agree, inconsistencies. So, do you mind if I call you to, if I have questions? I said, I hate to ask you, but he said, listen, I'll just stay up all night. And so he sat in his apartment watching TV, and I just would call him after each chapter if I had any questions. But he worked really hard, and he worked times when he would rather have been out dancing, but he felt very very committed to providing this for dancers. He knew there was an interest. It wasn't about promoting himself. He was responding to interest. And you asked about the details, and there was one story where the part where what's his name, Lionel Hampton, I think it was, didn't play his music. when he was in the Congaroos, and it messed up their routine, because by the time they were in the Congaroos, it was a set routine to set music. And I've never heard anybody, Frankie, really speak negatively about anybody. I'm willing to say it in public, but he did talk about that. And there's another story, if we have time I'll tell you, that's related to that. But anyway, I really wanted to include that, and it turned out it was the last time he ever performed with the Congaroos. So I really wanted to include it, and for a long time he was sort of on and off, and he would be like, I don't know, it's kind of a downer, I don't want to bring people down, I want to elevate, to lift them up and give them, and I would say, well, when you go to a movie, let's say, do you want the hero to always be up here or here or here? Don't you want to see the hero have a challenge and come through it? And he'd sort of, here you go, yeah, that's true. And then Judy Pritchett, his companion, got in on the conversation, because we both felt it should be in there. But he had the final word. I mean, obviously, I credit Frankie a lot with letting me say what I wanted and express my opinion about what should happen. And he was very, for someone who was, as he used to say, old as dirt, which I love that expression, he was quite progressive in his relationships with women, and he really gave me the leeway to say what I wanted. Now, it was kind of unspokenly understood that if he really didn't want something in there, I wouldn't put it in. And there were certain things we agreed on. I mean, there were, if it was negative about somebody, like that they drank or, that came into the picture occasionally. We made a decision not to put that in there, even though I know some people would be interested. We just felt it's not up to us to say that about a person. But anyway, there came a point where it was getting close to when I was going to have to submit the manuscript, and I was like, I can't just put this in or out. I have to restructure some of the chapters if we're not putting it in. So I said, I want you to let me just, what I need is to stand up and explain why I think it should be, and I want to give you all my reasons, and I'm going to ask you to just listen to me, and then at least I feel like I've tried my hardest, and if you say no, it's okay, I'll let it go, but you have to give me the chance to try. So I stood up and I went through the whole thing for like 20 minutes, and a couple of times towards the beginning he tried to interrupt me. He said, and I said, no, please let me finish. We agreed I could say my piece. And at the end, he said, okay. So at the end, I finished and goes, okay, put it in. And I was like, really? He said, I tried to tell you that at the beginning, but you wouldn't let me get in there. Because I thought he was going to say no.
Yeah. Now we had a chance to hear the full thing.
Yeah,
even
that
if
was
we agreed
so funny.
in the beginning.
Because it's always been something about me, like even at work, I might say to a supervisor, let me just give you my opinion on this, and then if the answer is no, it's okay, no hard feelings, but I need to speak out. So anyway.
So what, in the very end, when the book was done, what did you think about it?
Oh, well, we weren't sure. We had no idea how it was going to go over.
What do you mean?
We just didn't know if people would like it or
not.
If they think it was
the
interesting.
response.
And he went up to he went to Foray shortly. It came out on his birthday, as you know, and it made number 6 on the Amazon list, and it was Ricky Panganaban and David Jacoby, with support from the rest of the Yehudi crowd. They put on our book party, and they did this viral email campaign to get the book to sell on his birthday. And it was actually supposed to come out in the fall before that, but I didn't have it done in time. I actually had a panic attack the night I realized that I was not going to be able to fulfill the contract. Because in the contract it says if you don't turn it in on time, we can charge you. Now, they didn't do that. Temple was great to work with. There was no question that they didn't, even that never came up. But I was going to have to disappoint them and Frankie, and my heart started beating so fast I couldn't go to sleep all night, and I went in and got an EKG from my doctor the next day. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it worked out great because it came out in the spring list, and they released it on his birthday, and the Yehudi guys engineered this viral email campaign. You know, that was the only way to do it then. I don't even know what was happening with Facebook around by then. I don't know. There was not much in the way of social media, so they sent emails all over the world, and we sold about 2,000. Was it 2,000 books? Yeah, I think it was about 2,000 books that day, maybe. I don't remember. I think. Anyway, which is what it takes to pump you up into the Amazon 10 best list. That was the goal, was to get it up there. Now, I went to bed at midnight in New York, knowing that it might go, it was at number 7, knowing it might go higher. But I didn't take any screenshots. But someone told me that they saw that it went up to number 6 by midnight in California, which was very thrilling. I mean, it was above, really famous books by really famous people. Wow. It was very thrilling. And I've always been so grateful to the whole swing dance community. I mean, one guy wrote an email and he's like, all I did was buy a book, but it just felt so good. And it was, really wonderful. I mean, everybody together really accomplished something very meaningful. But anyway, we still didn't know because the book was just coming out, and it takes a while for people to read it. So Frankie called from Foray, and he said, Cynthia, people here are raving about it. And that was really the first indication we had that people liked it. So anyway,
wow.
So that was nice to know. And I was incredibly grateful that he was still alive. I mean, there were, some ups and downs with his health. And I just knew if it happened, if he passed away before it was released, it was just going to be, I was just never going to feel okay about that. But he had 2 years, so he got to go around the world and sign it and see that people were reading it and enjoying it, which was great.
So good. Did you have a special thing in New York with him as a release?
Yeah, the Jazz Museum in Harlem got together with these Yehudi guys, and they did something at the Riverside Church.
Okay.
There was a discussion, an interview, and then a dance afterwards.
And you looking at the book now, is it any piece that you wish was different, or Frankie had a comment about, or something that's like, I mean, of course, it could be a lifelong project, right? It could never stop.
Yeah, that's sort of the curse of having something in print. Well, there are some mistakes in the book, and I really regret those. One of them, I think it just got lost in the shuffle because Frankie moved around in Harlem so much. So we had I don't even know how it happened, but I know several of us who read the book, we all missed it, but Leonard caught it.
Yeah?
Leonard sent me a letter with some thoughts about the book, mostly very positive, but he mentioned this. So the address where Frankie and Frida worked out the air step was I can't remember. We had 240, and now I can look it up if you want, but it was off by 10 digits. It was either it's supposed to be 240 and we had 230 or vice versa. So I got that changed. They let me do some edits, Temple did, as long as it didn't change the pagination. So I spelled Buddy Steve's name wrong. It said Buddy Steve instead of Buddy Steve, so we fixed that.
I mean, I can't even imagine all the details, everything that goes into it, all the research and double checking, have all these people involved. I mean, it's such a amazingly
we worked really,
project.
really hard. I have to say, we worked really hard to have it be accurate, really, really hard, and there were a lot of points of data that we were able to bring out that weren't available before that, and it's understandable, but it still of course bothers me. And then Bobby White found something, and Bobby White's done some fantastic research on the Harvest Moon balls, and with technology today, he has the videos or copies of them, digital copies. He can slow it down, he can enlarge it. Now, the way I watched those videos in my day was I would go up, I'd make a reservation at the dance collection, I would go up there, they'd set me in a room, I was allowed to watch it one time, and they had the Harvest Moon ball videos. I was allowed to watch it one time. If no one was watching, I'd rewind it and watch it once more, but that was it. And I had to take notes, and that was all I had. And Sorry, I feel like I have a
So you
hair
didn't
somewhere in my
sneak
face.
in a camera, so you did that.
I would not have had that. I know someone who did that once, and it freaked me out. Yeah, no, these were glass. They were small booths, and it was all glass, so you couldn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think towards the end I had one of the years somebody found it for me on a video. But anyway, Bobby found out, and again I can look this up if you want, but at some point I'll publish this in another edition or on the website. He found out that Frankie was not actually in the 1936 Harvest Moon Ball, and he was in 1939. I think that was the mix-up. And later on, more documents, because I re-looked at some of the documents, and I realized I could see some support for that, but I hadn't caught it. And Frankie was he won the same amount of awards, that he got the same medal, but it was in the wrong year. So it wasn't like he was building up how much he participated or what he won. He just had the year off. And if you think about it, he was performing in Atlantic City, and it didn't occur to me at the time. I guess I would have just assumed he came back for a quick, he did the competition, but I think he was probably so caught up in that. So
it's an amazing book, and it's one of those, it's such a resource, and I mean all the work, and it's fascinating to hear you talking about it and get a little bit more understanding for what it takes.
Yeah, well, it was a great experience. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I had the experience, and it was, it was an homage to that he was such a delightful, engaging person. I mean, it was fun to do it because of talking to him and meeting with him, and again, his attitude was always, there's an interest in this, people want to know, you want to know, other people want to know, and I'm taking that seriously, and I want to meet people's needs that way. And he put a lot into, and we tried to put a lot into naming all the other dancers, giving credit to people who contributed steps or contributed music or contributed to venues or events I just counted up. We have in the back of the book, where did I put the book? In the back of the book, there's the biographical sketches of dancers, and I'd been thinking of doing that, and Temple really thought it was a great idea and they really wanted it, and that was just so that at least you could identify, go look up the name of the person and have some idea, like we tried to say I tried to look at all the videos and name which video each dancer was in, and anyway, I counted it for a certain reason recently, and there's like 100 people in here, and there's not much on them. I couldn't find much on most of them. I relied, Bob Kreese had done this wonderful series called Profiles of Original Lindy Hoppers, which is on the Frankie Manning Foundation website now. I got permission to scan them, and we posted them on the website so they're available, because there was getting to be quite a bit of interest in those. He did these fantastic interviews with about a dozen people. So for those people, there was quite a bit of information, but for everybody else, not very much. I mean, sometimes all I could say is, well, you'll see them in this video, or, Frankie would try to remember, well, after they were dancing, they got married and focused on tap dancing or something like that. Now, I'm really hoping that somebody will do a book that enlarges on this, because now with all these genealogy websites, I mean, you can find so much information on people, but I couldn't back then. I even went, there was one person who Frankie thought he became a policeman, and at my school we had an police officer who was head of our security, and I asked him, is there a database you can go into to try to find this guy, and he couldn't, but I think that there's a lot more information out there now that I could not find, and I would just love to see somebody. So
people, do you hear that? This is Cynthia's invitation.
I'll help you. I'll do anything I can to talk about the research. But I mean, any person I don't know, 50 and under now knows how to work the internet and get, there's all these databases. But
yeah, it's a whole different place.
I think people are really eager to. I mean, Norma did several books. There's jazz dancers, Bobby White's stuff. Karen Campos McCormick has done some wonderful research. She translated Norma's book into Spanish. She did a great job fleshing out when Whitey's Lindy Hoppers were in Dublin in their 1936 tour. And there are, Paula Brockington has done some really nice writing, and Judy Pritchett, of course, has done some wonderful research, particularly on the Big Apple. And there are other people, and forgive me if I'm missing someone, I just sometimes, in an interview the names don't come, but I'd really love to see more of that being written down, and there is something nice about a book. But Rusty Frank did that wonderful book called Tap. Do I have it? Here it is. Where she interviewed lots of different people who were in TAP and did a chapter on each one with a little background. A lot of these people you can't interview now. Although
and Rusty's book actually inspired this. Like, this is, a way to do it, to kind of just get one-on-one like this and have this kind of interview.
It did help.
So, yeah.
And Rusty was very generous in talking to me about how you do this, because she was also working full-time. Yeah. I'd love to see someone do that. I'd love to see someone do books on Barbara Billups and Sugar Sullivan. They are still around. They're both wonderful speakers. They can tell the story. You don't have to do outside research except for fact-checking and background. They can tell their own stories. So, I know people are eager to hear about other dancers and who else was contributing, who else was out there. And there are relatives of Al Minns and relatives of Leon James around still. And, we never meant for this book to be, like the only voice. There's Norma. We figured Terry Monahan's book would come out and tell everybody else's story. And tragically, he died before he could do his book. I'm still hoping that someone can work with his notes. But so that was always the plan. We were working at the neck and neck and helping each other, and he was incredibly supportive of this book. And the idea was that they'd come out, and between Frankie would have his perspective, and that's all it is his perspective, and then Terry had all this other stuff. I mean, he interviewed hundreds of people who had been at the Savoy. So, I really hope that...
Do you know how far he got on the project?
I don't know. He wrote some really great, really detailed articles. He had so much material. I don't know if he created a draft or if it was, in his head. I'm not really sure. I'm hoping that at some point his family will be able to work with a writer. And not me, but I hope somebody will. I have an idea of some people in mind that I think could do it, and hopefully that'll happen. But I think for other people that are interested in the history, there's a lot to be written about it still, and it's never been easier to do research than now.
Right.
I've been. If you want, I can get one of the albums and just
yes.
hold it up.
I was thinking about that. That would be
lovely. I've been doing research to find some of the articles, because Frankie tended to clip. Frankie tended to clip articles without the surrounding date and name of the newspaper, which now you can actually find that information often. Judy Pritchett is helping out with that a lot. She's great at that. And Laura Jeffers is helping catalog the videos of Frankie and some of the newer materials. I'm working on the vintage materials, which I'll show in a minute. And then the idea is that the Frankie Manning Foundation worked very hard with a wonderful pro bono lawyer named Lou Cannizzaro to get rights to the material from Frankie's family. So we bought the material from them. And now we're going to donate it all to the Schomburg. So I'm working on giving detailed information about each vintage item. Laura and Judy are working on the newer stuff, and so that when we're gone, the material will be there, and people will have the information for anyone who wants to do further research. But I think let me get the
yes, please.
Yeah, it took about 8 years to it's a very complicated legal procedure to make this happen, and the whole board was involved of Frankie Manning Foundation, and particularly Elliot Donnelly worked with the lawyer. So anyway, this is Frankie's album. I had this in my home for much of the time that I was working on the book, and this is an incredible article from the Daily News. It was a column called Wake of the News, and this was probably the single most, of all the resources I looked at, the thing that made me want to write the book. And it says, and if you want, it's talking about everybody at the Savoy. It talks about the older dancers, and then he says, and if you want names, here they are in order of their ability: Leroy and B, Shorty and B, Frankie and Frida, Freddie and Sister, Billy and Mildred, Rabbits and anyone, Speedy and Maggie. And it's just.
So when was this written?
This was I was able to determine that this was from 1936. I have that in the bibliography of the book.
Which paper was it?
It was the Daily News. Now you can probably just go online and find this. I think at some point we'll try to publish this somewhere. So let me see if I can find. So there's lots of.
Do you need another hand? You're good.
Yeah, like here's the. Oh, thank you. Here's I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of glary.
Yeah.
It's. I was thinking of taking everything out so I could organize it in chronological order, and then Karen Campos McCormick said, the general rule is that you leave things in the albums the way they were designed, and Karen encouraged me to do that, so I did it. So this is the group that went to California with Norma, and
this.
Can you see that? Let's see what else we have here. So lots and lots of articles. These are articles about the Ethel Waters tour to California. Frankie was not on that. He was in the Cotton Club. Here's an original Cotton Club program.
I can't do it a little closer.
Sure.
If I just do this. And try to get the glare out of it a little bit. Yeah.
And I know people who have bought stuff like that on eBay now. A lot of this stuff is, you can catch it there. Plastic Sport when they went to Europe.
So this was the album.
This was one of the main albums. There's another one that's got more kangaroo stuff. Let me see if I can. Here's that pretty well-known picture.
You all recognize this, of course.
I'm gonna.
There's Frankie. Wow, Cynthia.
Yeah, so
this
it was
is gold,
a real,
right? So have you? It's locked in a big chamber, safe in a big safe.
It's in my. It's in my room on a bookshelf.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So once everything is cataloged, we've got a whole big database going. It'll be given to the Schomburg, and then. Over time, hopefully particularly the vintage materials as they come into public domain, they'll be online. But anybody who can go to the library, it'll be there.
So it's this and then his collection with clips and movies and stuff.
So we divided. Laura Jeffers, bless her heart, she took many boxes of videos and newer materials that he saved, and I got I have 2 albums and a couple of boxes, and so it's that's the current idea project, and this is one of the main programs of the Frankie Manning Foundation, along with our ambassador.
So when do you think this is going to be?
Yeah, I've had this for a long time. It's been very hard to get it going because we had to get rights, and then we had a lot of communications with the Schomburg about how this would work and what they would want from us. I'm hoping by the end of the summer at the latest, but that depends on
it will be done.
To the grindstone. I hope so.
Yeah,
I'm going to really try. If not by the end of this year, but
so you're really moving on it.
Well, it took a long time to get how to do this worked out, like how to work out the data, what the database categories were, and all that, and how to do it, and so.
Cynthia, this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was really fun to chat with you.
Yeah,
we go way back.
Yeah, we do.
Decades. It's the greatest thing about staying in with the swing dance crowd is you'll end up having friends that are, 30, 40 years
Yeah.
down the road, which is wonderful.
It's been fascinating
Thank you
to hear the back stories that we can't read out in the book. That the finished product.
Thank you for your interest. Thank you for.
Oh my gosh! Any special piece that you feel like we haven't touched that you would like to share, or does it feel complete for now? I mean, it's not a dot, right? It's just a comma, but it's.
Yeah. No, I feel like we covered so much.
Really did.
Just I think what I said, that I think the special thing and what drew me to swing dancing is it's a social dance, because I performed in other kinds of dances, and you'd work together for several months, once a week, then twice a week, then every night for a week before the show, and then you'd all scatter. And that's, I think, between the very high quality of people that I met that seemed to be drawn to this, and the great music, and then the socializing and the coming together over and over and over, and many of the same people being there. Some people cycle out and back in, some people you don't see again, new people come in, but the sort of fluid community is a lot of what I think is very precious and what makes it really special. And even though I'm not dancing that much, that's how wonderful that part of it is. That's still.
You told me recently that you went to an event, and even though you couldn't dance, but you were just like you were in a place where you could still enjoy so much to be part of it. And that made me so happy.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that with your injury, but you could still really
Well, I mean, my knee is fine, and I'm hesitant to do anything. Like there's no horseback riding, no water skiing, no ski, because I just really, I love walking, and I want to be able to
be in the community and be around the music and the people.
Yeah, and I know that's kind of hard to imagine for some younger dancers. I wouldn't have been able to picture that, but I've been dancing since I was 12. I mean, it's like decades and decades and decades, and for me the important part is really the people at this point, as well as that the dance continues. I mean, that was, just that it continues.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank
Cynthia.
You.
I appreciate very much your time.
It was really fun chatting with you. Thank you, W.
I think so too. Thank you. And thank you for watching. This is Eva W. Burak together with Cynthia Millman in New York, March 26?
Oh yeah, what is
Today?
that? Is that the day the Savoy opened or closed? I know it's. What is it? Wait, I think it's always March 12th. Let me look in the timeline. Thank God for the timeline.
Yes,
I know it's
that.
jogging my memory. Let's see. Oh, I don't have the date here. Oh well, I feel like might be unimportant. That's why I look at this all the time. I look at this all the time.
And I could tell all the little tags there. So March 26th is today, at least we know that.
Something happened.
So 2023. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. After I finished this interview with W, I realized that there were a few corrections and edits that I wanted to make. And the producers of the series were kind enough to allow me to do that, so here goes. At time code 8 minutes and 25 seconds, I'd like to add that, in addition to Norma Miller and Frankie Manning, some old-timers who attended New York Swing Dance Society dances included Sonny Allen, Buster Brown, Helen Clark, Eddie Davis, but not Eddie Shorty Davis of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, Dawn Hampton, Delilah Jackson, Hazel James, Al Legans, Mabel Lee, George Lloyd and Terry Lloyd, Charlie Meade, Sonny Olivo, Harry and Ruby Reeves, Samuel Scotty Scott, Sugar Sullivan, John White, Yvonne Washington, and Chaz Young. Many of them were professional dancers at some point. Some members of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers who attended New York Swing Dance special events included Pepsi Bethel, Eunice Callan, Wilda Crawford, Mildred Cruz, and Laura Dyson, Naomi Waller-Gay, Dorothy Miller, Ruth Reingold, Harry Rowe, and Eleanor Stumpy Watson. And Helen Daniels of the Congaroos also came to a special anniversary event. Also, many swing-era musicians played for or visited New York Swing Dance Society dances. At time code 9 minutes and 10 seconds, The band that I saw when I first went to Small's Paradise in 1984 was Al Cobb's C&J Orchestra. Time code 14 minutes and 20 seconds. The New York Swing Dance Society began offering free classes before their dances sometime in the early 1990s and continued doing this for many years until sometime before it shuttered in 2016. Time code 17 minutes 55 seconds by Ryan Francois. Time code 33 minutes and 15 seconds by Judy Pritchett. Time code 35 minutes and 13 seconds by Michael Clancy. Time code 42 minutes and 2 seconds by John Hampton. Time code 1 hour, 7 minutes and 15 seconds, and again at 1 hour, 12 minutes and 40 seconds. Yehuda Strader's Ricky Panganiban, Frank Delario, Manu Smith, David Jacoby, Neil Blongiardo, Amy Wynn, and Heather Flock supported the Amazon sales push of Frankie's memoir and also co-produced our book party, helping out in many different ways. And Ryan Swift also helped with the Amazon sales push and photographed the book party. Time code 1 hour, 16 minutes and 50 seconds by Leonard Westerlund. Time code 1 hour, 28 minutes and 5 seconds by the Schomburg Center, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, which is in Harlem, New York, and it's a research branch of the New York Public Library. And by Laura Jeffers. Time code 1 hour, 32 minutes and 33 seconds. The Frankie Manning Foundation Ambassadors Program is now called the Frankie Manning Foundation Scholars Program. And time code 1 hour, 36 minutes and 14 seconds. The Savoy Ballroom opened on March 12th, 1926. It closed for demolition in October 1958. And a commemorative plaque on the site was unveiled on May 26, 2002. Thank you. Bye. I hope you enjoyed the interview.